I'm Kathy, the CEO of Folio, and your host for this summer. Today, we are overjoyed to introduce our first guest, Stephanie Bohn. Today's lesson is how to build a tech career that makes the world better. It might seem like a career in tech means choosing profit over purpose, but the best roles combine both. In this session, you'll learn how to build a career in tech that aligns your values and accelerates your success. Stephanie Bohn, Chief Marketing Officer and mission driven founder, shares how she found purpose in product and how you can too. Stephanie Bohn is a tech executive, board member, and disability advocate with 20 plus years leading marketing at Chief, ShareByte, VidMob, Netflix, and Warner Bros. She currently co-hosts the largest Rett syndrome fundraiser, helping the organization surpass 100 million for curative research. Stephanie is the founder of Truly Care, a platform that connects families of kids and loved ones with extra support needs to trusted sitters and aides. She lives in Los Angeles with her husband Andy and their daughters Lucy and Sadie. For everyone in the live audience today, this session is interactive, so please look out for questions throughout the presentation and answer in the chat. If you have questions, please also post them in the chat and Stephanie will take them at the end. Stephanie, thank you so much for being generous with your time and wisdom. The stage is all yours.
Thank you, Kathy. That was a lovely introduction. I am very happy to be here. This is my first time using this particular platform, so bear with me if it's a little bumpy. But yeah, this is a topic that means a lot to me personally, as I have been very intentional in my career certainly in the kind of, I would say, second half of my career, in infusing purpose into every career decision that I make and how I approach the jobs that I do. So I'm really happy to be here and share this with you because I know, even just sort of based on research and anecdotally, that your generation is even more purpose driven than my generation was, even in the early stages of your career. And so I hope that what I share today gives you some ideas and some maybe validation on that you can do both. Okay. How do I go to the next slide? Do you know how I progress to the next slide, Kathy?
Yes. Do you want to go ahead and, if you're sharing your screen, just click on the screen?
I am sharing my screen. I am
Yes.
clicking and it is not unfortunately working.
Okay. Let's see. Let's go on the tab that you have there.
Oh, I know why. I know why.
Okay, great, great,
Got it. That's
great.
embarrassing.
Nice.
Okay. So, as Kathy mentioned, I'm a marketing person by trade, and I'm a very visual thinker. So I thought, what better way to share my background than show you a series of pictures? If I were to think about, reflecting on my academic career and my professional career in a series of logos, this is what it would look like. Um, Not sure if anyone out there went to Michigan or UCLA. Very excited if you are. I'm a strong supporter of both of my universities, but I also, I'm very happy to connect with people from all across the country. Um, so after my undergraduate experience, I want to share just some context on my background. I went to Michigan for undergrad, and I got my BBA, my Bachelor of Business Administration, at the Ross School of Business. Um, and after that, I was recruited by American Express. It was an on-campus recruiting scenario, which was really wonderful. And I worked for American Express as a summer intern between my junior and senior years, and then I went to work for them full time. The internship was incredibly helpful in that regard. I'm a big fan of internships, which is why I'm such a fan of the Folio platform. Um, and then after I was working at American Express for a few years, I decided that I had this passion to work in the film industry for a long time, but born and bred in New York, didn't really have any kind of like familial connections to the entertainment industry. And I always assumed how could I break in? And so far, the first 3 years of my career were in financial services, but I decided to give it a try and I applied to business school to go to the Anderson School at UCLA to move to LA, which, is ground zero for the film industry. And I got a series of internships during my MBA program at 20th Century Fox and at Disney and also at Warner Brothers. Again, big fan of internships. These were my way of getting my foot in the door into a brand new sector that I had zero experience in. And I won't stay too long on this topic, but I will say it's a funny story. Within 2 weeks of starting my internship at Fox, so guys, I knew nothing about anything. I got a call from Warner Brothers about applying for their summer internship program. And I was so honest. I said, I'm so excited. Yes, I want to apply. I just want you to know, I don't really know anything about this industry yet. But it was really just a matter of I had Fox on my resume, and then that helped me get Warner Brothers, and then Disney came calling. So it's really it's a powerful thing, internships. After I was at Warner Brothers for quite a while, I joined in the home entertainment division. So running marketing for films that had already been in the theaters and then taking them out to home entertainment platforms. Back in the day, VHS, DVD, Blu-ray, and then digital distribution. Um, there was an opportunity. Warner Brothers acquired a company called Flixster, which I'm not sure is fully functional today, but Flixster had a really powerful underlying database and of entertainment fans. But they also owned a company called Rotten Tomatoes, which I had been a fan of for a long time, and nobody was really paying attention to Rotten Tomatoes. It was this kind of like, to me, hidden gem that was completely overlooked. And so I made a presentation to the president of the division. I said, "Would you give me a chance to run this? I believe in this, and I think I can, significantly help grow the audience and the brand." And so he gave me a shot, which was great. I did that, and a few years later, we sold it for to Comcast, and now it's owned by Fandango. So at that point, I had been at Warner for about 13 years, and I feel like I'd been around many parts of the studio, I'd done digital app. Game development and film marketing and CRM, and then ran Rotten Tomatoes. And I felt like, okay, I've had a great 13-year run here. I don't want to be a lifer. What else is out there for me? And that's when I was recruited by Netflix. And I went over to Netflix, which was a really wonderful experience. But what I was kind of didn't really realize in myself I was looking for was a chance to be a creator, an entrepreneur, and kind of build something from scratch. And Netflix was amazing, but anything but that. It was a well established company, growing at an incredibly fast rate. And so I stayed there for a year, and I got a lot out of it, and incredible training, especially about how to build a company with culture as a core value. And then I took a giant leap, and I moved to a company called VidMob, which at the time had 13 employees, zero revenue, zero product, but founders that I believed in, and they were building something that was really interesting to me. And I decided to jump in, and that was my first CMO role. For a lot of people, when you take that leap to a C-suite, something has to give. And so for me, it was going to a much smaller company. And as I was taking a bet on them, they were also taking a bet on me. I had never been a CMO before. And so I stayed there for 5 years, and we grew it. By the time I left, it was about 350 employees globally. We raised $100 million in funding, and high double-digit annual recurring revenue. Great investors, our customers. You name the brand, we had their business. Excuse me. And what VidMob did was develop ad creative and digital content for brands. So it's really an amazing experience. And I will touch on later how purpose weaves in here because it does in a big way. After VidMob, I was brought in to be the CMO of a company called ShareByte. One of the investors in VidMob sat on the board of ShareByte and said, ShareByte needs what you just did for VidMob. Would you come over here and do that? And so I did that, and it was an incredible company, mission driven from moment one, which was really attractive to me. And I will get into that in a little bit. And then I was recruited by a company called Chief, that is a Google-backed company. It is a unicorn, so valued at over $1 billion. And I was a member at the time, so I was very excited to be recruited by a company for which I was a customer. Chief is a network of executive women, and the goal for Chief is to help women executives maximize their leadership impact and also diversify the composition of the boardroom. So not only bringing in women, but bringing women of color and women of different abilities and different lived experiences. And that really meant a lot to me. And last but not least, I left Chief in early 2024, and I was sitting with myself thinking, what's next? Should I go get another CMO job? What about that idea that's been brewing for the last decade that I wanted to try, but always felt like was I good enough? Was I smart enough? Was I capable enough to be a founder myself? And I decided to take that leap. And this is called Truly Care, which I'll explain in a little bit, but it is also mission driven from moment one. So, um, I a big part of my, I would say, professional story my personal story doesn't stop with the jobs that I have. It is very much like a big part of me is my service to boards and my service to the nonprofit world. I have been serving on nonprofit boards for, I think, over 15 years now. My first experience was with a wonderful organization called the Lollipop Theater Network. This was my way of bringing my experience in the film industry and my love of children and children's charities. We would screen films that were premiering in theaters in children's hospitals in various cities. And for children that were not able to leave their rooms or get out of their beds, we would do private screenings in their rooms. And we had red carpets and tickets, and we often brought the stars from the films, as you can see, Spider-Man. We would bring them to meet the kids and sign their autograph and play with them and hang out. And it was just incredibly special because when you're in a hospital, you miss out on so much of what's going on around you. And when you're a kid, that's just a really, really hard for kids to be stuck inside. And so we wanted to make sure that they didn't miss out. Then I joined the board of an organization called KidSave International. KidSave's primary commitment is to help older foster children find adoptive families. That is, they are incredible as well. They've obviously done a lot of work recently in Ukraine, and now they're working very hard with other countries to support children who are displaced. But as you could probably imagine, a lot of kids who are older don't have a chance to be adopted, and that is the sole purpose of KidSave. And then in 2015, my younger daughter was diagnosed with a rare neurological disorder called Rett syndrome. And that is the time at which I said, KidSave, I love you. I will continue to support you, but I'm going to step off the board and join the board of this organization. I have to put all my chips on curing my daughter. So I've done a lot of work with them. So before I get into the weeds of like, how do you have a career with purpose? I want to just kind of center on a concept. Maybe you've heard of it, but the capitalism, have you heard of it? um, there's two kind of viewpoints. This is oversimplified, but there's kind of like two viewpoints of capitalism. One is the shareholder theory, and one is the stakeholder theory. There's a guy named Milton Friedman who was born in the 20s. So he worked at the University of Chicago at the School of Economics, and he was a thought leader. He was an author. He was a well-respected professor, an economist, and he had this theory that the sole purpose of a company was to generate profit for the benefit of shareholders. That is it. That companies have really no reason to, and frankly shouldn't do much more than just focus on what is the most, making decisions to to maximize profit. So things like doing, work in the community, or giving back, or having employee resource groups, those things to him would be distractions, and to him, frankly, like um, unethical for a company to pursue, because the only reason a company exists in his mind is to generate profit and accumulate, to generate wealth. That theory, was a replacement for, like, before he sort of came around, companies would hire for tenure. Like back in the day, people would work at the same company their whole life, and companies were very much a part of their family and their life, and they took care of their employees. But in the 50s and 60s, when thinkers like Milton Friedman were around, that started to shift, and the idea of capitalism started to change. Then we had other thinkers come, and Ed Freeman is sort of a leader in this of this theory, is about stakeholder capitalism, which is to say, yes, we want to deliver profits to shareholders, but that's not the only thing we're responsible for as corporate entities. We also have to give back and support the communities in which we operate. We have to support our employees and think about the well-being of all of the entities and people that benefit from our success and or are at risk if we fail. And so they're opposing thoughts, and unfortunately, the two never got to debate each other. That would be really fun to watch because they were about 40 years apart. But there's something called the Business Roundtable, and the Business Roundtable met about maybe like 8 years ago or so, and had this really interesting long conversation about stakeholder versus shareholder. And they actually netted out, with some companies we know, to believe that stakeholder theory is the right way to go. And companies do have a moral and ethical obligation to support more than just shareholders. So this concept of stakeholder capitalism spoke to us so much at VidMob, and we actually wrote a lot of thought leadership about it. If you go to the VidMob website, it's probably still on the blog. We wrote a lot, in sort of like 20, what was it, 2019, 2020, and we thought about this a lot. And we're like, well, who are our stakeholders, and who else is affected by how this company behaves and performs? Just to recap, VidMob is a creative tech company. So, using AI, we were early movers in the AI space to analyze digital content and understand what aspects of a creative expression are driving the performance of an ad, of a piece of digital content. And we felt like, well, who are our stakeholders, and what can we do to feel better about our success? And so in the upper right-hand corner, you can see Sustainable Development Goals. This is what the United Nations puts out to understand, like, what are all of the different goals, and kind of the beneficiaries of those goals that we could have to make our world better. And there's hunger, there's health, there's well-being, there's community. And so for VidMob, what we decided is to take the 1% pledge, which many companies were doing at the time and continue to do, which is to say 1% of our profits would be given back to nonprofits. And you can decide, what that means. It's up for a lot of interpretation. For us, what we decided to do is what we do best, which is to create amazing content and give that service to nonprofits rather than just giving them money. Actually do the work for them to help them amplify their cause and reach wider audiences. And what we heard from nonprofits is that was actually more valuable than getting a check, because they still had to do the work, and then they didn't know who to work for, who to hire, who to trust. So they were really grateful for the in-kind support. And we worked with the CDC, the World Health Organization, we did many Giving Tuesday campaigns. We worked with organizations in Rwanda and all around the world. We helped refugees, you name it. We were so excited to sort of lend what we do best to help people in a really meaningful and measurable way. You can see at the bottom what we were able to accomplish. These are current stats, so they extend beyond when I left VidMob, but we created over 1,200 videos, supported organizations across 20 countries. We supported 160 nonprofit partners and met 17 of these SDGs. That was a way that we could try to measure the impact of what we were doing. And I'll say, the truth is, the work that we were doing during the workday of, building digital content for brands was exciting, but there's a part of us that felt a little like, how is this making anything better? And it's going to accumulate wealth for people. It's going to help brands sell more stuff, but like, how does it sit with us in our hearts? And we felt so good knowing that our success meant that more nonprofits could be successful, and so did our clients. And all things considered, they would pick us every time versus a competitor because of that. So then ShareBite. ShareBite is a really unique company. It is an HR tech platform, and it helps companies provide meal benefits to employees. I don't have the stats here, but I think it's the order of about 55 million Americans are currently food insecure. Okay, we only have 330 million citizens in this country. It is an enormous number, and food insecurity is invisible. You don't walk down the street and necessarily you can't identify someone who's food insecure. It's not something that's always apparent. they're not necessarily emaciated, and they hide it well. And it's a very shameful, embarrassing situation. And many people that we know that are gainfully employed and own homes and cars still aren't sure how to put a healthy meal on the table 3 times a day. And so ShareBite, in working with companies to feed employees during the workday, decided for every single meal that is ordered, we would donate the equivalent of a meal to combat food insecurity across the country in partnership with Feeding America and City Harvest. This was our way, again, of thinking, what are we doing? What are we really good at? What are people willing to pay us for? How can we take that and do it for good? And so this was the mission from day one. And the reason I wanted to play this very short video, oh, I should mention, to date, ShareBite has donated 14 million meals, which is, I mean, it's hard to comprehend. You know, every day I woke up when I worked for that company, I couldn't wait to open my computer and just start, because I knew that me doing a good job meant that a mom could put food on the table for her kid. That, I mean, it was a like it was so meaningful to me. And I actually, as on a personal level, started donating at food pantries because I got so close to the issue, and it feels so good to see the benefits of your work so immediately. So this is the founder. His name is Dilip Rao, and I just wanted to play this for you to see what it looks like when a founder is truly mission driven, and how the mission, the purpose, cannot be separated from the reason the company exists. That is the measure of authenticity.
There's an investor that said, in 5 words or less, just tell me what ShareBite does, or why do you exist? That's hard, right? 5 words. So I remember telling him ShareBite exists to end hunger, right? And that piece, that mission and that vision for what we are and who we will become and what we're trying to do has not wavered once, right? Even when we were staring into the abyss in when the pandemic hit, we were a couple months from being profitable and the rug gets pulled out from underneath. We stuck around, we innovated, we gave relief to restaurants. We were the first and only company that waived all commissions to restaurants. And, we get emotional because, restaurateurs are it's a family business. We get emotional feedback from a lot of these people. Like, you gave me a lifeline. The catering orders you would send us through, in our early days to basically feed first responders and frontline staff, that kept us afloat for the first couple of months. And so, there's this, I guess, framework that at least I and the rest of the company adhere to. It's like doing the right thing is the right thing to do. And I know it's like when you focus on the mission and you focus on the purpose, everything else is going to fall into place. And that's what we've done. And that's how we've been able to attract such talented and passionate people to come join us.
And I will say that is the main reason I decided to join. And so many other really talented people in the leadership and throughout the company were attracted by that mission. So it actually does help your business performance.
There's an investor that said in 5.
Okay. So last, I wanted to share about Chief. This was really interesting for me when I was thinking about how does this map to purpose, because I had made a list for myself. As I mentioned at the top of the hour, I was always very intentional, and working for a company with a real mission that mattered to me was at the top of my list. So when I thought about Chief, I am the beneficiary. I am a woman. I have, been in rooms where I'm the only, and it's not easy. And I've been doubted, and I've, lost opportunities because of my gender throughout. It's quite different when I was starting out 20 years ago. But Chief was a place for me that I was deeply proud of being a member of, and, helping women to maximize their leadership impact will benefit everybody. And also helping improve diversity in the boardroom will help everybody. And so here's a video that that I created when I was at Chief to help express what that mission and that purpose was.
Leadership is always hard, and I don't think it's ever been easy.
Everyone needs support. No one got to where they are going it alone.
As executives, we need people to talk to, and Chief gives us the opportunity and the connections to talk to people.
I have never seen any other spaces that exist like this for women in the C-suite to be able to learn together, grow together, make mistakes together.
You also get perspective from women in the C-suite all across the board. Chief has created this cultural revolution of women who see themselves as a community and who want to continue to help each other.
Chief has that powerful community that can really help open doors for you that I don't think you could do by yourself, no matter how talented you are.
If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Leadership is always
Okay, so back to our lesson on stakeholders and shareholders. I just wanted to kind of tie it in a nice bow. If we think about stakeholders for each of these three companies that I've just shared, who do we think those stakeholders are? And this is not an exhaustive list, but for VidMob, we have, of course, the customers that pay us, the creators. I didn't mention it's a platform that connects creators all around the world to brands to produce this content. So all the creators that are intentionally choosing to work in the gig economy and making sure that they are protected and they are seen and supported, the communities in which we operate, and of course, the employees. On ShareByte side, customers, of course, restaurants, as you heard Dilip talk about during the pandemic in particular, restaurants were hit so hard and they needed help in order to stay afloat. If we didn't keep restaurants afloat, of course, the general public would suffer, but especially when there's a run on food at the grocery store. But also, that's just like obviously, a huge part of our economy, and we needed to make sure that we were coming together to support this industry, the communities, and the employees. And then on Chief, the company partners, many companies would pay for their women executives to be members. And so we needed to make sure that they saw the impact that we were having on their leaders. The members themselves, of course, aspiring executives that weren't quite ready to join Chief, but we wanted to make sure that they were in the pipeline and understood what it would take and help them get there. And girls and young women who are looking at the members of Chief as role models, and the communities in which Chief has clubhouses and also that has members, which is all across the country. So let's hope this works. But I wanted to have a moment of interactivity. Think about your last job, even if it was an internship or it was a babysitting job, whatever. Who were the stakeholders? Who was affected positively or negatively by how you did your job? I'm gonna pop over to YouTube just to see if anyone is interested in sharing. Whoops. I don't think that worked well. Hold on. Okay. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to DJ this and go between lots of screens. So whether we share it with the team, I would like to leave you with this, like to think about it with this stakeholder shareholder framing and think about what jobs you've had and who is impacted by how you showed up and how you did your job and how the company performed. So I last wanted to share, how did I find my purpose and why did I start Truly? For me, it was really about my lived experience. I have a daughter who you see on this photo. Her name is Sadie, and she's my younger daughter, and she was diagnosed with a brain disorder called Rett syndrome, and she's unable to walk, to speak, to use her hands. There's so much that she's lost because of Rett syndrome, and I feel like I've almost lived parallel lives. I'm by day this, powerful, ambitious business person trying to, make my way in the workforce and do good for companies and generate, make a good living. And then, but by night, I'm a mom who's, struggling to understand her daughter's disorder and do all the things that moms do and find her schools and therapies and doctors. And I have an older daughter. And so the only way that I have been able to operate and function, survive, is because I've had amazing caregivers for Sadie. I didn't know it at the time over the last 10 years, but the way that I have brought people in to care for her and the kinds of people that we've hired have not only helped Sadie live her best life and take her on these amazing adventures and help her believe in herself and really serve as her friends, because when you are nonverbal and non-ambulatory, it is very hard to make friends on your own. But they've also made our life better. They are additive to my life as just a wonderful presence in the house and sometimes almost like my like older children slash siblings slash family members, because I don't have any family in Los Angeles where I live. And everything just worked. My husband and I were able to kind of like just harmoniously live as other parents would and work and do parent things and not spend all of our days stressing about the little things that are required to make sure Sadie has all the care that she needs. And so at a certain point, I realized like, wow, I am so lucky. Of course, I have the means to, spend the time and recruit the caregivers, and get with some supports, that a lot of families with disabled kids get to have all this great care. But I look around me and there's so many families that are suffering because they don't have the care and they're drowning in all the responsibilities that are thrust on them that they did not expect when they had kids. And so my mission was to help get everybody the care that they need for their family so that they can live the lives that they want. And that is how Truly was born. So I named it Truly because I truly, truly care about people finding the right caregiver. It's not just about finding a warm body in the house that can do a couple of, tasks. It's about a really solid, optimal match. And when you have that, your life dramatically improves. You can sleep your full 8 hours at night. You can have a job. You can show up to your job fully with mental health intact, with physical health intact. You have time to work out. You have time to, be the best person and parent that you can be. And that's why I called it Truly Care. The whole goal is to reimagine how people find caregivers. So it's reimagining the caregiver discovery experience. It's an AI platform, as I've mentioned before. I've been in AI for a long time. So here's me bringing all of my worlds together, in building, the next gen AI fueled agentic experience for finding caregivers. So it's kind of like Hinge on steroids, but with like a white glove experience with Julie from Truly helping you the whole way through. So you don't have to fill out a bunch of forms, you don't have to sift through a bunch of resumes, you don't have to feel like an ill-equipped recruiter. And most importantly, really for care providers, giving them a forum to find amazing jobs. What we have found is that care providers who are pursuing careers in healthcare or education, still in school or recently graduated, find this work not only to be great because it's flexible and it's well paying, but it affords them an opportunity to build real practical resume boosting skills that help them get the jobs that they want or get into the master's programs that they're hoping to get into. So our goal is to create this platform that helps everyone find each other because they're all out there. So let's see if this works again. We'll try. I was going to just pose a question to the group. Who are Truly's stakeholders? I'll go to YouTube. If this doesn't work, I'll just go on with my presentation.
I mean, it looks like we do have people engaging. It's just weirdly slow. So just in case the audience is watching, we use a separate platform to live stream, and it's a little bit of delays. So
Okay.
maybe we'll just
I'll wait it. I'll wait like 30 seconds or so. But if you think about, all the people that we're serving and people who we could serve. I hope I'm looking in the right place for the chat.
It's like it's below the video. There we go.
Okay, I am looking.
Okay, great. I've got a couple answers in there. Alejandra and Salma. Lydia.
Oh, so you know what? I'm not able to join the chat maybe because I'm also presenting. So
I can read them to you.
Yeah.
So Alejandra says parents, caregivers, and children. Salma says people who need the care. Lydia says parents, families, children, caregivers. Yogita said parents, children, babysitters, nannies, and aides. Omar says employees, parents, family, children, caregivers. We've got lots of people.
That's great. You're all right. You're all right. These are photos of real people who will benefit and have benefited. I'm going to reveal the answer, but I wanted to just take a slight detour with this slide that is the data behind the answer. So this is really why I'm doing this. I don't know if you've heard these stats before, but 1 in 6 kids in this country have a diagnosed disability. 1 in 4 adults have a diagnosed disability, and these are adults under 65. So we're not talking about elderly adults. We're talking about 18 to 64-year-olds. 1 in 4. 6 in 10 adults have at least one chronic condition. 4 in 10, which I'm not showing here, have 2. On the bottom, 53 million Americans right now are unpaid caregivers, meaning they are doing 2 jobs because they're working full time or they've left the workforce, and they're caring for someone that they love in the home. Here's a frightening statistic. 1 in 3 people in this country, adults, have exited or plan to exit the workforce because they can't find or afford care for their loved ones. These are people who are able to work, who are able to contribute to our economy, who want to work, but can't because they have other responsibilities to their family. When you are splitting your time, let's say you don't leave the workforce, if you are caring for someone and also working, as you can imagine, you're probably like half of your brain is always on that person when you're at work, and half of your brain is on work when you're with that person. So it really reduces your productivity on both sides. But there have been studies done, and the latest shows that caregiving reduces employee productivity at work by about 1/3. And then last but certainly not least, when there is inadequate caregiver support, there is a huge hit to our healthcare industry and ultimately to taxpayers. It's about $25 billion in additional healthcare costs when you don't have the right healthcare, when you don't have the right care at home. So when we think about who we're serving, who are the stakeholders, the list is long. And this is why I feel intense pressure to do this and to do it fast and well. Of course, there will be our investors, should we be lucky enough to get them, caregivers, families, our employees, regional centers, which go by different names in different states, but those are the government funded agencies that act as social workers and help families navigate services and supports. State and local governments, right? Because if we can't find care and people stop working and people stop paying taxes as much as they were, this has a ripple effect. Community programs. We want people to be out in the community, not isolated at home. And we definitely do not want people to be institutionalized. And when you don't have the right care, sometimes you have those impossible choices. Schools, of course, universities who might be helping us to recruit students and early professionals to these jobs. Employers who are employing people who come to work strung out and stressed for all good reasons. Taxpayers and health providers. So the universe is big for us, and we're thinking about it that way. So we make sure that we're always coming back to the reason we exist and our purpose. So think about for yourself, what's your purpose? What moves you? It may not be any of the causes I've shared today, and that's okay. But I think in all of us, and it gets easier to answer this question as you get older and you experience life, and everyone on this call or who watches this, unfortunately, will at some point or another in their life run into a hardship. And that is hard, but also character building. And it often helps us connect with causes and give back and turn adversity into a force for good. So I want to leave you with a framework. It's called the 3M's framework. There's 3 vectors that you can think about when you're thinking about your next job or even just your career path. One is meaning, kind of like what I just asked before. What energizes you? What are you excited about? What are you passionate about? What would you like to leave to this world when you're gone? Mastery, and this will also change over the trajectory of your career. What are you great at? What do you want to be great at? What are the skills that you want to acquire? And of course, the reality, rent doesn't pay for itself. What sustains your life? How are you going to make money? Even if you work at a nonprofit, you make money. So you have to think about what are your financial goals? Are you someone who, has ambitions? And there's nothing wrong with this to have a very luxurious lifestyle, or are you someone that doesn't? And that's okay. So thinking about these 3 in combination will help you reach that bullseye. And where those 3 meet is where you belong. And I wanted to mention that, purpose really, it does pay off. And there's 5 things that came to my mind as to why. Number 1, work really never feels like work when you're doing something that feels so good in your soul. I wake up every day when I'm thinking, building Truly, and I think about that list of stakeholders, and I'm like, what I do today can actually make their lives better and make a real difference over the long haul of how people think about caregiving, and hopefully do my part to contribute to changing the societal narrative about caregiving. That is so thrilling to me. It's beneficial for mental health, which ties into number one. If it doesn't feel like a grind and you're not worn out by the end of the day because you don't know, like, why am I doing this? Why am I sending this direct mail? Why am I making these postcards? Why am I sending these emails and doing spreadsheets? If you don't know why you're doing it and it doesn't feel like there's a greater good, it can actually become a grind for your mental health. Connecting with like-minded people, all the people that are working with Truly are there because they believe that there's a giant business opportunity, but they really are excited about the mission. Maintaining perspective on what really matters, again, kind of feeds back into number two. These are all interrelated. And 5, it boosts long-term career satisfaction. So really think about what lights you up. Here are some questions to ask yourself when you're trying to answer this very big existential question. What kind of world do I want to build? Who am I trying to be useful to? We can't solve every, cause in this world. So try to, whittle it down to the things that, really, get your heart pumping and your energy up. What story might I want to rewrite that I don't like? Is there an injustice that you think that you can help contribute to fixing? When do I most feel like myself, right? We always want to be our authentic self and show up fully. So when you're aligned with certain missions that ring true for you and have a connection to lived experience, you feel like you're showing up as you and truly you. And then last, like what legacy do I want to leave? And the good news, guys, is you don't have to answer any of these questions right now. You don't have to feel pressure to do all of this stuff right now. You're at the beginning stage of your career. But, I do wish that someone had told me all of this when I was early on. So I didn't feel so bad about just focusing on my skills and, earning a living in the early stages of my career so that I could sustain myself and pay for grad school and then get to the point at which I was skilled enough and a leader to do real good and make a real impact to the causes that matter to me. This was truly fun. Thank you. You'll always get a truly pun out of me. This QR code, I'll leave it up, is if you would like to learn more about Truly. And you can follow us on Truly Care Official on Instagram. We have YouTube, Truly Care Official. And you can also find me on LinkedIn if you're interested in following me. I'm at Steph Bohn, STEPHBOHN.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Steph. You've had an incredibly impactful career, and I think we can all feel your passion, which is really awesome. Thank you for being so generous with your time and wisdom. We do have a bunch of people in the audience, and they do have some questions. If you have maybe 5 minutes to stick around and answer them.
Sure.
The first one's very generous. So we have a lot of people in the audience who care a lot about your mission. So they asked, how can the Folio community, or how can we support Truly?
Oh, thank you. It's like I paid someone to ask that question. I would greatly appreciate your help. As I mentioned before, my thesis is that we can provide a great opportunity to people who are looking to do nannying and babysitting and, being aides and supporting the disabled community as a side hustle or as a full-time job. And a great fit are people who are pursuing careers in healthcare or education, or who just love helping people who have different abilities and challenges. You don't need prior experience to be a Truly care provider. One of my daughter's best caregivers was a dancer with Lady Gaga, and she just loved doing this on the side. So really, it doesn't mean that you have to be a nurse or anything. We find that people who are pursuing nursing careers or physical therapy or occupational therapy, speech therapy, special ed, education, psychology tend to be attracted to this. So if you can tell all of your friends about this new opportunity. We launched in Los Angeles, and so we're bringing on care providers here first, but the link is on our site and anybody can apply, and we'd love to get you in and vetted so that we can match you with families. Demand is huge. As I said, 1 in 6 families have a child with a disability or special care need. they are clamoring for this to go, to launch. So the faster we can build our caregiver pipeline, the better. Again, it's part-time babysitters and nannies, it's full-time, the pay is great, it's flexible, and it's great practical work experience. So spread the word for me, that would be wonderful.
Awesome. And are you primarily located in the LA area right now, or is it national?
Right now, we're in Los Angeles. The thing about marketplaces is, as you know, Kathy, you have to kind of pick an area and achieve some market density and build it. And then as soon as we have, our first successful city, we'll be able to quickly expand to more cities.
Okay, awesome. And for folks in the audience, we talk about soft skills pretty often and how in the world of AI, being able to show off those soft skills, especially with caregiving, is incredible. So it's a great opportunity to show the skills that you have, not just the projects that you've built. All right, we have a question from Salma. She says, thank you, Steph. Question, how did you deal with a company you wanted to work at? Salary was great, but the mission didn't live up to what they said it was.
That is a great question. There is an example that rings true for me. I won't mention the company, but I did feel some dissonance with what I was doing and building and how I was promoting it. This was earlier on for me, and it didn't really connect with what mattered to me. And I kind of felt like I'm not adding to the world. I'm not making anyone's life better. I'm just trying to get them to buy stuff. And so I ultimately decided to change my job because it started to feel like a grind and it started to feel icky. That's okay with a lot of people, and that's okay. There is no judgment. We need jobs. That's the reality of life. But I was at a point where I felt like I had acquired enough skills that I had value to offer to another company that was more closely aligned with my values.
Yeah, I think that's really valuable advice, especially early in your career. Sometimes if you don't know exactly what you want to do yet, building skills is a great way to build that sort of foundation so you can do what you want once you figure it out.
Yeah.
All right. When you were our age, audience, did you imagine being
I'm still your age, guys. What are you talking about?
so maybe when you were in your teens and early 20s, did you, well, not that, well, I'm just going to stop talking. Did you imagine being a founder? Was it something that was on your radar?
No. I never believed enough in myself that I could do it. And I really would think things like, okay, I'm here on this earth to help founders and CEOs realize and scale their vision, and I'm really good at that, and that's enough for me. It wasn't until I left my job at Chief and I was ruminating in my head, can I do this? Should I do this? I have to give credit to my husband, who is also an entrepreneur, who said, you have been talking about this for as long as I can remember. Why don't you just try it? I support you. I think you'll be great at it. Sometimes it's just a little bit of affirmation from someone who you love and trust. But also at that time, I was just sort of going down the rabbit hole on Google, and what dropped in my lap, so to speak, was this report from a company called the Holding Co., which is a think tank, and with amazing designers and researchers who support the care economy. Melinda French Gates' company Pivotal is they're part of the Pivotal organization. They did this market sizing report that they had just published, and for whatever reason, Google decided to serve it up to me, and it showed me the size of the universe that I was thinking about I would love to, play a part in, and it was $650 billion is spent on the care economy in the US. I was like, oh my God, like if I had like 1/1000th of a fraction of that, that could make for a real business. And I know through my lived experience how acute the need is. So that was one data point that was like, maybe this is a sign from the universe. And then I was invited to speak at an AI summit in San Francisco. And I had a feeling they were inviting me to speak because they thought I was still CMO at Chief. And so I reached out to them. Remember, I'm honest Abe. So I said, hey, thanks for the invitation. Just want to let you know I'm not at Chief anymore. So if you want me to connect you with someone at Chief to make this presentation, I'm happy to. But if you're interested in me, just say I'm the former CMO and I'm happy to fly up and do it. And they said, no, we'd like you to do it. So I flew up, and on the airplane, on that Southwest flight, I told myself, you're going to show up not as a CMO, which is what you've been for a really long time, not as a marketing person. You're going to show up as a founder in stealth mode. I hadn't started anything yet, but I wanted to put that new hat on and see how it felt. And I was going to be in a room full of strangers who were leaders in the AI space and tech space and see how it felt and see how they reacted. And it was incredibly fun and incredibly validating. And every single person was like, that's amazing. Tell me more. And I was just explaining, articulating without any rehearsal, because I hadn't really thought about it before getting on that plane, what it was that I wanted to build. And this person wanted to introduce me to that person and invite me to that thing and connect me to this network. And I flew home and I'm like, I can do this. That was my trial run. And that's when I decided to try.
That's incredible. I love that the world kind of pushed you information and then the opportunities came alive. Then, you get real feedback from people very excited about what you're building. So that's awesome. We'll do one last question because I know we're almost at the hour. And it's very related to the fact that we will be hosting a challenge for Truly Care in August. So awesome. But Munasha asks, what criteria would you use to assess whether a candidate in a technical position like software engineering is a strong fit for a mission-driven company like Truly Care?
That's a great question. First it's going to come down to the technical chops and, the types of work that you've done in the past. For me personally, as someone who hires lots of people, I am always drawn to people who are incessantly curious and excited to learn the next new tools. I think that proves that you're not kind of stuck in what's been done and you're open to trying new things and you're flexible and adaptable. So for what it's worth, that is the number one thing I look for, no matter what the function is for the job I'm hiring for. I love to hear people's personal stories. I love in an interview to understand what about this job is exciting to you, what resonates, what drew you to apply, other than the fact that it's, aligned with your functional expertise. And I open it up to hear their personal stories to see how connected they seem to be and how authentic their reason is beyond just earning a paycheck, which is a very fair and great reason to apply for a job. But if there's that underlying connection, to me, that gives them the advantage, because there are going to be hard times, good days, bad days, as with any company, but particularly with an early stage startup. And you want to make sure that they're in it for the mission, because that will get them through the hard days without feeling like they're giving up or it's a grind or their mental health is at stake. And so that authenticity is important.
Awesome. Okay. I think that'll take us to the hour. Stephanie, thank you so much for teaching us how to align purpose and profit in a career. You're an incredible example of it, and we are all super excited to explore Truly Care. To everyone here, thank you so much for tuning in. We are very excited to see what you build and look forward to providing feedback and seeing your progress. So if you have feedback that you're requesting, go to the feedback channel. Happy building, and see you on Discord. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.